The mistakes I'm going to share with you today are not obscure or complicated. They are common, they are widespread, and they are quietly keeping millions of people sick, especially after 50. I'm Dr. Berg, turning keto and health science into simple habits that transform lives. And I want to start with something that will save you a lot of frustration before we get into the specifics. The source of your health information matters enormously. The average doctor receives almost no training in nutrition. The conventional medical model is built around identifying a condition, giving it a label, and matching that label with a medication. It is not built around finding the root cause and removing it. And when those medications create new problems, which they frequently do, those new problems get their own labels and their own medications. I am not saying doctors are bad people. I am saying the system they were trained in is not designed to make you well. It is designed to manage your condition. So when you are evaluating health information, make sure it is coming from someone with genuine experience and real results in the specific problem you are trying to solve. Be willing to question a diagnosis that does not feel right. And always ask whether the treatment being recommended creates more problems than the symptoms you started with. With that foundation in place, let's get into it. The first thing that is quietly destroying the health of most people has nothing to do with food. It is chronic stress, and more specifically, chronic exposure to the things that generate it. When you are in a constant state of stress, cortisol and adrenaline stay elevated. That chronic elevation suppresses the immune system, disrupts sleep, drives inflammation, and keeps the body locked in a physiological emergency state that makes healing almost impossible. Two things make a profound difference here that most people underestimate: your environment and exercise. I did not fully appreciate how much environment mattered until I moved out of the city onto a farm. The space, the quiet, the contact with nature on a daily basis. It is genuinely therapeutic in ways that are difficult to describe until you experience them. Getting into nature regularly, even if it is just consistent time outdoors away from screens and noise, is not optional for your health. It is a requirement. And exercise, specifically wave-based exercise, where you push hard and then recover, rather than sustained high-intensity effort, is one of the most effective tools we have for fleshing out accumulated cortisol and adrenaline. Your body was designed to move. When it does not, those stress hormones have nowhere to go. Now let's talk about the nutrients that matter most, because getting these right changes everything. Vitamin D is the most important. Your body has somewhere between 20,000 and 25,000 genes. Vitamin D influences approximately 10% of them. 10%. That is an extraordinary reach for a single nutrient. And the doses that create a genuine therapeutic effect are far higher than most people are taking. To actually move the needle, to influence gene expression, to support the immune system at a meaningful level, to address chronic conditions, you need 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, or even 50,000 IU of vitamin D3, depending on the situation. There are physicians using high-dose vitamin D3 to remodel tissue in conditions like glaucoma. Others are using it to shrink fibroids. A medical doctor who specializes in autoimmune disease has over 900 documented testimonials of results achieved primarily through high-dose vitamin D3 therapy. The sun is still the best source, and most of us are simply not outside enough to get what we need from it. The second most important nutrient is magnesium. Magnesium is involved in thousands of different processes in the body. Virtually every form of heart disease involves a magnesium deficiency. But magnesium goes far beyond cardiovascular health. Without adequate magnesium, your cells cannot produce energy. You cannot make ATP. You are running on empty at the cellular level and wondering why you feel exhausted. And critically, magnesium is required for vitamin D to function. You can take large amounts of vitamin D3 and see almost no benefit if your magnesium is depleted. They depend on each other. The third essential nutrient is zinc. Zinc is a trace mineral that most people are deficient in, and it works in close partnership with both vitamin D and magnesium. All three are deeply interdependent. Neglect one and the others cannot perform their functions properly. Now, let me tell you about two nutrients that most people are getting too much of, and both can become seriously toxic in excess. Calcium is the first. As we age, calcium has a tendency to end up in the wrong places, depositing in soft tissues, in arteries, in joints, rather than staying where it belongs in the bones. Magnesium is the primary regulator of calcium in the body. Without sufficient magnesium, calcium becomes unregulated and begins accumulating in places that damage your cardiovascular system and other tissues. This is the direct pathway to heart disease that almost nobody talks about. The second, and this one is even more dangerous, is iron. The human body has an extremely limited ability to excrete iron. At most, we eliminate between 0.5 milligram and 1 milligram per day. Yet the RDA for iron is 8 milligrams daily. And for women of childbearing age, 18 milligrams. We are taking in far more than we can eliminate. Excess iron accumulates in organs and tissues and causes oxidative damage. Essentially, it rusts your body from the inside. If you have a genetic condition that affects iron metabolism, the accumulation is even more severe. Start reading labels, avoid iron-fortified foods wherever you can, and never take iron as a standalone supplement unless you have been specifically tested and confirmed to be deficient. Now, salt. Avoiding salt is a mistake. The distinction that matters is between refined table salt and sea salt. Sea salt contains 84 minerals. It is a fundamentally different substance from the processed sodium chloride that comes in a standard salt shaker. People who are so-called salt sensitive are almost always actually potassium deficient because sodium and potassium work as a team. When you are low in potassium, sodium becomes problematic. When potassium is adequate, sodium from sea salt is not only safe, but necessary. When you are deficient in salt, cortisol rises, sleep suffers, stress increases, your electrolyte balance collapses. You need this mineral, and you need potassium alongside it. The RDA for potassium is 4,700 milligrams daily, and I genuinely do not think most people come close to that. Let's talk about cholesterol, because this is one of the most damaging misconceptions in mainstream medicine. As we age, hormone levels naturally decline. Testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, all of them drop. And every single one of those hormones is built from cholesterol. When you cut dietary cholesterol or take medications that block its production, you are cutting off the raw material your body uses to make the very hormones that are already declining with age. You are accelerating the hormonal collapse that comes with getting older. Your brain is largely made of cholesterol. Your bile salts, which you need to digest fats, are made from cholesterol. Your stress hormones are made from cholesterol. This is not a villain. It is one of the most essential substances in the human body. Butter, eggs, dairy, shellfish. These are not foods to fear. They are foods to prioritize. Now, carbohydrates. And I want to be very specific here because there is a piece most people miss. Cutting sugar is obvious, but starch is equally important. And most people do not realize how much starch they are consuming because it hides under names like modified food starch, wheat flour, corn flour, and dozens of other labels. Starch converts to glucose in the body just as sugar does. The insulin response is the same, and excess insulin is behind an extraordinary range of chronic diseases. Not just diabetes, but fatty liver, high blood pressure, inflammation, and accelerated aging. And speaking of insulin, the frequency of eating matters as much as what you eat. Every time you eat, you trigger insulin. Every single meal and snack. If you are eating 6 times a day, 3 meals and 3 snacks, you are producing insulin 6 times a day. That chronic insulin stimulation is one of the biggest drivers of metabolic disease in the modern world. 2 meals a day, no snacking in between. This alone, without changing anything else, creates a profound reduction in insulin output and allows the body the fasting periods it needs to repair, regulate hormones, and burn fat. Now, protein. Of the 3 macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fat, protein is the one that matters most for rebuilding and maintaining health. Most of your body is protein, not just muscle. Your immune system is protein, antibodies, white blood cells, all of it. Your connective tissue is protein. Your enzymes are protein. And here is something worth understanding. An animal will keep eating until its protein requirements are satisfied. Junk food is almost entirely devoid of protein. This is why it is so easy to overconsume. The body keeps signaling hunger because the protein requirement is never met. The most healing, nutrient-dense protein source available is grass-fed beef or grass-fed lamb. These provide the highest quality complete amino acids alongside B vitamins, trace minerals, and the nutrients most needed to repair the gut and rebuild tissue. As we age past 50, maintaining protein intake at each meal becomes increasingly critical because muscle loss accelerates with age, and protein is the raw material to counteract it. Organ meats are an extraordinarily concentrated source of these nutrients. I personally do not enjoy liver, but cod liver is something I genuinely love and eat approximately twice a week. It is one of the most nutrient-dense foods available, and I recommend it highly. Now let's talk about autoimmune disease, because it is one of the most common and least understood conditions affecting people today. In my experience, autoimmune conditions consistently involve 3 overlapping factors: low vitamin D, a microbial trigger, a virus or pathogen that has found a way to downgrade the vitamin D receptor, making normal amounts of vitamin D ineffective, and almost universally, a significant stress event that occurred just before the condition developed. A loss, a trauma, a severe shock. When a person goes through that kind of stress, cortisol surges and the immune system becomes suppressed. If vitamin D is already low, the immune system can shift into a dysregulated state where it begins attacking the body's own tissue. The combination of high-dose vitamin D3, stress reduction, and environmental change addresses all 3 of these factors simultaneously. It is not a drug. It has no side effects. And it addresses the actual mechanism rather than suppressing symptoms with more cortisol in the form of prednisone. And the last point, and I want you to take this one very seriously, your gut microbiome is not a side feature of your digestive system. It is an organ. The microbes living in your gut outnumber your own cells. They produce neurotransmitters that regulate your mood. They influence your cognitive function. They manufacture vitamins your body cannot produce on its own. They are central to your immune defense. They govern your sleep quality. They determine your ability to fight cancer. And when you take an antibiotic, you do not temporarily reduce their numbers and then return to baseline. Many of those microbial species never grow back. The microbiome you have after a course of antibiotics is not the same as the one you had before. That loss is permanent. This is why fermented foods are not optional. Sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, these feed and replenish the microbiome on a daily basis. A high-quality probiotic adds to that foundation. These are not trendy additions to your diet. They are essential maintenance for one of the most important organs in your body. Everything I have covered today matters, and it especially matters after 50, when the margin for error gets smaller and the consequences of these mistakes become more visible. But if you're younger, start now. Health does not happen automatically. It has to be built deliberately, consistently, and with the right information. I have linked the video right here on the best foods to eat to build and maintain real health. That is the natural next step from everything we just covered. Go watch it now.